The NHS in Wales is in real trouble. There is a waiting list of nearly 700,000 people in a population of 3 million. A quarter of them are waiting more than 9 months and some over 2 years for a first outpatient hospital visit. It is tough for patients, for those who would want to be patients, and of course for those who work in the system and want it to be better. The pandemic did a lot of damage here in Wales, but in truth it was already in quite a mess. So what can be done? What is realistic? Let us talk to Dr. Hilary Williams, who is a consultant oncologist and a member of the Royal College of Physicians Council as well, and is on the line. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And I want to talk about what the realistic possibilities are in just a moment. But can we start with the state of things at the moment? Because it sounds really grim.
Yeah, I mean, it's undoubtedly tough. And I think, one of my surgical colleagues described it as brutal. And I think, for me, the numbers are huge, but actually the reality is that I'm seeing those patients. And in my world of cancer, that's actually meaning that cancer patients, they are missing the curative step. We have a thing called stage migration in cancer. And that means that someone's going from a curable or a treatable cancer to perhaps by the time I meet them, there's not very much I can do. And we're seeing that week in, week out. And it's
really?
Not just cancer.
Week in, week out. And you're seeing people, presumably including relatively young people who you could have saved who won't be now. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking, when you see, whatever age you are, but when you see, a mum that's got school-age kids, it's just really, really tough, and we really, really feel for them. And we are seeing it regularly, and I'm sure it's not just cancer, I'm sure it's the other specialities as well.
Must be awful for you as well. I mean, awful for them, but also awful to work in a system where you desperately want to be able to help people and find that you can't.
Yeah, no, and I think we are feeling that. I think perhaps one thing we've learned from the pandemic is that we need to support each other. So me and my little team, we take time to talk to each other about those issues and perhaps we're a little bit more open about them. But yeah, we need to see change. We need to see light at the end of the tunnel. And everyone's working hard, but, the system is in many ways just beyond repair at this point.
Beyond repair?
I mean, maybe it's a little bit harsh, but I think, in the worst times you feel that. I think we have got solutions. We've got some very good clinical leadership in Wales. There's a plan called, 6 Goals for Urgent and Emergency Care. It's led by clinicians. It's got some really, really good ideas, but actually it's a really small team delivering it, because that's the way we work. We don't have the big teams that banks and things have or huge lawyers have. We're actually relatively small teams that work
one of the
together.
things that I brought up with Mark Drakeford when the First Minister, we talked to him half an hour or so ago, is a workforce plan where you have a list. You need this number of radiologists, this number of anaesthetists, etc., and you need them by this year and this time, and here is how they'll be funded. And he rather hit back. He said, actually, you have got that. But from your perspective, do you have a kind of sense of who is needed, in what areas, and how they'll be paid for?
No, and I think that's something, I've been talking about. Absolutely. We need a plan for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and we need those post-funded. And the missing link is often that if we have the money, those people need expert training. So we've opened new medical schools, which is fantastic. But it takes, 3 years to get someone who's trained to do an endoscopy, or 4 years to be an expert in reporting scans. And this has to be the whole of Wales, but it also has to be the whole of the UK. So, the UK government's not the Health and Social Care Bill hasn't got a workforce plan. So we can train more people in Wales, but they'll be poached by England. So it has to be a UK-wide, look at health force.
Do you feel your patients, not exactly turning against you, but increasingly concerned about what you're able to provide? Because Mark Drakeford said all people on the doorstep say is the NHS in Wales are heroes.
Yeah, it's really tough, isn't it? I mean, I think most people support us, but, they're at breaking point, aren't they? When you've been in A&E for 12 hours, you feel pretty desperate, you get angry. And, what I need is actually more time. I spend quite a lot of time talking to people about just their journey till they've got to me so that we can kind of move forward. And so I think we don't have the time to care at the moment. It's not all the time. People do come into my clinics and often say, I've had fantastic care up till now. Great, thank you. My secretary's fantastic. They're always thanking him. But there are people that are missing out, and there's definitely variation.
Dr. Hilary Williams, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us this morning.